This is the theme of Setback, an interview with a hitman, and this is an introduction to Victor as a character. Select frames. Before we will know if Victor is going to shoot the young girl, the other child, we get the opening credits of the movie. And so here it is. We have the actor Luke Goss, and he's coming into an airport with a suit. Interesting that he doesn't have a tie. That I would think that anyone who is sort of wound as tightly as he is in the movie, that he would always be dressed. He would always have a tie. He would always be sort of sharp. Here he looks like a businessman. He doesn't look like a hitman in the sense that we would think that he would be a hitman. No, we just see him as a person with other people coming through an airport and getting ready, I guess, to do business. So he's in a bathroom, in a restroom, and he's taking off his jacket, his suit jacket, and he's going to change into some street clothes. The interesting thing I think about Victor as an adult, that same blank face that he has as a child, he maintains throughout the film. It isn't until he really, I'll say his blank face changes when Sergey betrays him and attempts to kill him. And then we see some emotion. And then it returns to maybe a focused half blank face when he's trying to become another mob enforcer for another person. And then that face changes again when he meets Bethesda or helps Bethesda. But it's interesting that his face here is basically just a adult grown-up face from when he was a child. So he has changed into his street clothes. So he's changed from being on an airplane to now on a train. And he's now going to, it seems like he's just a regular everyday person, which is possibly the disguise. When he comes to the airport, he has on a business suit. So as to not draw too much attention to him. Well, he needs to look like the people who are, going about their day every day. And so no hitman, of course, is going to look like a hitman or should look like a hitman. But basic clothes, jeans, shirt, leather jacket, shoes, etc. And then some sort of bag that's hanging from his arm is just your basics. You don't need a long sort of suitcase or anything like that because you're not going to be here that long. So then we have a cut to this man, this older gentleman. He was in a car. He's trying to figure out what's going on. He's gotten out of the car and he's about to walk across the field. We don't know who he is. We don't know what purpose he's going to serve. I can tell you right now he's going to be the interviewer, but there's a lot more to him that we will uncover throughout the film analysis. I think it's important to pay attention to age because he's the interviewer who is looking for a way to bring back some sort of respectability. He was disgraced. We don't really know why. I don't get a sense that we know why he was disgraced. He might have been caught in an uncompromising situation. After all, he and his brother are the ones who sort of the film doesn't say he raped Bethesda and her sister, but Bethesda and her sister were put to work. And we know from Sergey when he's trying to get the money from a person he owes, he tells him that if you don't give me the money you owe me, I'm going to put your wife to work. And so we just have to assume that this is probably a sex trafficking ring or men who just use young girls and women to serve as rich men or other types of men. So age does play a factor a lot of times in the decisions you make, because he's looking to come back in a sense, or make a comeback, but he's not as discriminating enough, because he wants to interview a hitman. So, he's interviewing a hitman. Who would ever want to go on camera as a hitman? That exposes you. So he's not thinking, he's not paying attention. Why would someone ever agree for me to interview them as a hitman, knowing that they could be exposed, and of course knowing that they could be arrested? So he's so desperate in his goal to become a more respectable person that he sort of misses the obvious. And so that age is not always an indication of wisdom. This is a person who looks desperate, is desperate to make a comeback, but is not really thinking long term. He's not thinking beyond the minute. So he's looking at this red trash can, iron based trash can, in this beautiful field, and he's going to walk to it. And it's interesting that it's away from the main road, and so it's almost like a lure, because now that you are out here, it's hard to say, okay, I'm not going to walk to that trash can, but you feel compelled to see what's actually in it, in the same way that you feel compelled to see what's in the hitman and what's in the whole ordeal of being a hitman. So again, age is not always a strong indicator of wisdom, because if you walk to that trash can, you really don't know. You have no true idea what's in that trash can. It could be a bomb in that trash can. It could be the whole thing could be a setup, which we will find out in the film that this actually is a setup. So he walks to the trash can, he gets the bag out, and it's a trash bag with particular items in it that he's going to rummage through and get instructions for, and then we will begin the movie. So he pulls out a gun from his ankle. We have a watch there that's basically telling us time, of course, but he's sitting in his car holding his gun, thinking that whoever is behind all of this is near. So he wants to basically be prepared. But the enemy that he's thinking is really not his true enemy. The hitman in Victor is not a true enemy. He only becomes an enemy for this man here because of Bethesda. But Victor doesn't really have any grievance with this man. Remember, this man is part of the mob system. You have the drug deals, you have the assassinations, and then you have the clientele. This person is a clientele. He represents the clientele, just like his brother, who also does something with the girls, right? And so abuses them and likely rapes them, right? This is a system. He represents a system, and he shouldn't honestly be afraid of the system that he's in. He shouldn't. Everyone should carry a gun because they are part of the system. But if he's interviewing with a hitman, why is he so afraid? But it's interesting that Victor is sort of working against the very system that he's supposed to be enforcing, because this person represents a client within that system. So then he aims the gun for, I guess, for whatever, practice. Interesting that is contrasted with Victor as a child aiming a gun, right? And so you have to wonder, when did he start aiming a gun? Did he aim a gun also when he was a young child? He seems to be a filmmaker. but I think it's maybe porn films or other types of films that may not gain universal appeal, or they were the types of films and that led to him being disgraced. And again, we don't get a lot of information about that, but he has some sense within himself to aim a gun, whether it's for practice, whether it's just to aim. But that tells us that there's a narrative history with him, that he not only has a gun in his ankle, but he's also pulling it out to aim as a way to practice for just in case. So then he reads instructions, and the instructions tell him to do certain things. He takes some pills, he put this on his head, and then he falls. Whether I don't know if it's asleep or just unconscious, but his time in the car ends here. He's not dead, but he's going to wake up in a room, I guess an apartment or loft type place. Wake up confused. So we have a cut to Victor in an elevator, an old-fashioned elevator, and we don't know if he's contemplating. We don't really know what his purpose is. We still haven't been really introduced to him as a hitman. We don't even know if he is the person who's going to be interviewed by the guy who was in the car. It just looks like two different people in different areas. One in this building, one in a field, and we don't get any sense. He doesn't talk. He doesn't really speak until he meets with the interviewer. So the man wakes up in a room, confused, doesn't know what's going on. Looks like there's an envelope on the desk, and I'm quite sure he's going to read it, but he's going to walk downstairs, and downstairs will be the interviewing camera equipment and some film DVDs. So this view, I think this shot here is very interesting, how the director gives us almost like an outsider's view of this person. He's on his knees. He's looking through the camera equipment. It's interesting that he doesn't come with camera equipment if he's going to be an interviewer. We don't know if this comes out of his car, but it's interesting. Usually if you are sort of like a camera type person, or these are your tools of trade, you will usually have them near you in the car, or you will go to your trunk to check and see if they're still there or something like that. And so we have to assume that these were supplied to him. He's taken off his jacket, is on the couch, so he is getting himself comfortable. And it's interesting that he still, even if these are not his cameras, he understands them enough to set them apart, to prepare them. And so he knows that he is here for an interview. Also, before he does this, he walks to the door to see if it will open, or, well, he walks to the door just to open it and then realizes it's locked. So he's locked into this place. In the same way, you can say that he's locked into his career or disgrace, and the only way that he's going to be able to get out of it is to make a decision that is illogical. You know, you come into a place where you were blindfolded, or you had to take pills and be unconscious or whatever. It's really unsafe. And we don't know how he's transported from the field in the car to how he gets here. We don't know if Victor is the one who does it, or if even Bethesda is the one who does it, but he is here and he's locked into a place, and that doesn't bother him. That's strange that doesn't bother him. That if I couldn't open the door, I would try to break a window, just for the just in case. In the same way that he's carrying a gun for just in case, he doesn't think enough to check any of the windows for just in case. So again, he's not operating with a good sense of logic. He's trapped. and he feels that the only way that he can get out of even his current life trap is to make a decision that could cost him his life, and it's actually going to cost him his life. So then we have a cut to Victor. He's now taking things out of the suitcase or this large bag, and he doesn't appear to be OCD or obsessive compulsive, but he does lay out his clothes as if he could be. We could argue that he is a person who's very, very focused on the task, focused on the assignment. And for him, this is an assignment to meet with the interviewer. The interesting thing is, when we get to the end of the movie, we're going to talk about his different assassin assignments, or what I like to call or label task management, that he lays out the clothes, and but this assignment that he's on right now is really not an assignment from a mob boss. In some ways, it's not an assignment from himself. This is where I think when we get to the end and we find out that it's really Bethesda who's been arranging all of this, that really when he lays out his clothes, this is not him laying out his clothes on his own personal initiative. This is really Bethesda managing him, that he's going to put on the jogging pants and hoodie, and he's going to pretend like he is a pizza man to shoot the brother of the interviewer that we just met or just saw. And so when you're thinking about tasks or assignments, usually he receives his assignments from Sergey, or he receives his assignments from the new mob boss that he's interested in serving, and it's mainly them telling him what to do. And Bethesda is now telling him what to do. We're not going to see that again until the end of the movie, but I thought it was interesting because I thought all this time that he was the one who was really in control, and that he's never really been as in control as this film suggests that he is. So we're going to see that now. He's in the jogging gear, and he's actually preparing to surveil the area. So he's pretending that he's a jogger. And these are kind of like actor clothes. Now, he could be a jogger in real life as an assassin, but these are actor's clothes, because if you're going to go out in the field, in a sense, or in the area, you got to look like the people who are in the area. So he has headphones, he has a hat on, and he has jogging clothes so he can blend in. And that's one of the tools of the trade that Sergey teaches him, to blend in. So he looks like he's blending in. So we get the back of him going through this, I guess, tunnel, and he's jogging. And I wonder sometimes when we look at Victor and his back, how much he has been holding on his back. You know, he still has his childhood to contend with, that we still haven't gotten into. And he has the betrayal, you know, but you have to keep running. Even if, and he actually had to run in the movie when he's betrayed and he has to fake his death. So this back shot that I think is very important to consider, because a lot of people who make a decision to become an assassin or choose any sort of life of crime, they do so with the idea of sort of having a monkey on their back, or they do so with the idea of carrying something on their back. And at this point, we know, or we're going to find out much later in the film, that it's really, he's propelled or he's compelled to make things right for Bethesda. So when he is working for Sergey or working for Trafficant or working for Franco or anybody else, you don't see him jogging. You don't see him changing his clothes. You don't see him acting out a role or a part or trying to blend into the environment. So this dress that you see here, this garb that you see here, almost like a theater actor, uh, this is all for Bethesda. This is not for any of the people that he has served before. He never looked like the jogger for them, but he's looking like a jogger for Bethesda. So we have a cut to a very nice, clean, white image that we don't see. We move from dark to light, right? And that when he is with Bethesda, his eyes look different, his disposition is different, his facial features look different. They look wider. They look like he looks like he wants to smile. He looks like he wants to be sympathetic. He looks like he wants to care. But pay attention to the idea of moving from dark to light, and that the irony is that the person who is setting him up, that who he's lying in the bed with right now, is actually dark. That for her to set this whole thing up as a way to take vengeance reveals her dark heart. But when we see them in bed together, it doesn't look like that. It looks like sunlight. It looks like insight. It looks like new wisdom. It looks like new discernment. It looks like hope. It looks like movement forward. But he doesn't realize, lying in his bed, letting down his guard, that he's actually moving backwards. That she has set this up so much to the point that very gun that he was holding towards that young girl is the same girl, possibly, who's in the bed with him now. So we see Bethesda here. She, as a character, we only see her looking at him, and we see her sort of maybe complimenting or being complimentary to him. We don't see much of anything else in terms of the negative aspects of the relationship. It just looks like maybe like a traditional relationship where two parties are in love with each other. We wouldn't necessarily think that this is the same Bethesda who's going to dress up for the assassin. The assassin, the assassination for the moment. And so this Bethesda here looks like a person that he met, he fell in love with, she's going to get pregnant, and he's going to want to leave the mob for her. And he looks at her with great intent. And usually when men are in this mode, they are looking to protect. So when you see him in that running outfit, running garb, he's thinking, if I don't sort of help her or sort of make sure all of her enemies are done for good, they may come after her again. In the same way that when he was in a restaurant and those three guys come in and they take her to the back to abuse her, and he has to make a decision to either leave out the restaurant or go back and help her, he has that image in mind. That's how they actually get to know each other as an adult, as adults. He had finished a kill. He's in a restaurant, drinking from a drink. She comes in, sits at a table near him, maybe two tables down, looks at him. He doesn't really look at her other than the glance at one time when she's sitting down. And then the three guys come in and they attack her and they take her to the back, likely to rape her, abuse her, and not knowing that that was a setup too, that all of that was part of the setup. And so you see the maybe the fright in him, the fear, the fright in him to want to protect her. And so we don't know if they are making a decision about meeting with the interviewer or taking out his brother or anything like that. We don't know that, but we see a lot on his face, and his face tells a lot about impending danger, trying to take out our enemies, making sure that we are secure and safe, that we can go on ahead and live our lives together. So we have him still running, right? And the kind of running that he's doing is there's a lot of distance between where he started and where he's going to surveil. And so that makes a lot of sense in terms of making sure that you blend into the environment. Maybe the place that he's going to could be a very expensive area. It could be in a very expensive area, or it could simply just be his strategy to position himself in a different area so that he's not perceived as anything other than a person who is residing in a hotel or in an apartment or something like that. But this gives him time to think. This running that he does from, and it started out from almost night, I guess, late afternoon to now evening to almost night. This gives him time to think. So by the time we get him shooting the brother, he has already met Bethesda in that restaurant. He has already fell in love with her, found out that she's pregnant, likely will want to marry her. So he has started something that he has to finish, that he has no other choice but to finish. You're going to hear Sergey and Cesar, his childhood friend, who are sent to kill him, to kill Victor, say that they have no other choice. They had to do it. If they didn't adhere to the boss's command to kill Victor, then they would have been killed themselves. And so in the same way, he has no other choice but to take out this interviewer's brother because he knows too much. It's not like Victor and Bethesda can go on and go get them a townhouse and live their lives and be free. They know too much, and these are probably people who are in positions of power who can really do some damage to them. So when you see him running, it's this feeling that I have no other choice. I got to do it. It's the same thing he heard when his betrayers were sent to kill him. So then when we see Bethesda actually shoot him in the end, it's almost like she's suggesting that she has no other choice. When in reality, she has someone who loves her, who wants to be a father to her, to their child, who likely wants to marry her, but she sort of says, no, I have no choice. I'm going to go ahead and do this. So this running is not something to take lightly. I don't think the writer-director says, okay, let's just have them run. When you understand the full when you understand the full film, and that by the time we see Bethesda and Victor together, we get that first, but towards the middle end of the movie, you see them meet for the first time as adults. And so we have to just assume that when we see them in the bed together and we see them connected and talking or not talking, that they have already met. So what he's doing here is one of those, I have no other choice, I have to do it. And this is them again. So that means that these are different days. He was on one side of the bed and she was up, and now he's on another side of the bed and she's on another side, the other side of the bed. And so that lets you know that their relationship has movement in a strange way. Their relationship has movement. And I mean, even when you see him running, that's their relationship having movement. Now it's movement towards killing somebody and setting up the interviewer and killing his brother, and then she's setting up the whole thing, of course, and then killing Victor. It's movement regardless. But you're going to see him look at her back and her back has all the scars from when she was abused and used as a child. And the interesting thing is that Bethesda represents the system too. She services the clients, and it's involuntary, right? Of course, but she services the clients. Now he's the mob enforcer for the larger system. Again, the system is drug dealing, other types of dealing, maybe arms dealing, drug smuggling, um, assassinations when they are necessary, of course, and then the women that they put to work, and then also the clients, the high level, high value type clients. And so he is the mob enforcer or the mafia enforcer for this whole system, and he's now sleeping with a client, actually a client of someone else. So in some ways, he's taking the future revenue from the system, because he's not supposed to have anybody for himself, at least not without permission, and also not without payment. But there's movement in their relationship, whether he knows Bethesda fully or not, and whether she knows him or not. And she knows who he is. She knows he is the young boy who came into her home and shot her father and shot her mother, and the two, her and her sister, were put to service men and be abused by men. So when he's looking at her scars, he may have some invisible scars from his own childhood, because he used to hear his father beat his mom. So his scars are invisible because he never really spoke much. He never really expressed. He never really cried until we see him having to shoot Sergei, his mentor. But this movement that they have is a false movement, right? It's a false movement. She's as a character, she's a very patient character. If I was wanting to take vengeance, I would be sort of impatient and want to take out the person as soon as I could. The guy, the interviewer who was in the field, she could have easily taken him out right there. But then it really wasn't about him the whole time, and that it was really about Viktor, and she just used Viktor to sort of kill him, and then she turns around and kills Viktor. So he's looking at her scars, the scars that in some ways he contributed to, even if he wasn't the person who directly abused her, he has contributed in ways. Now, we don't know if she tells him that she's part of the larger mob system as a person who has to service men, but he does know that on some level she may be connected to that system. We don't know if he knows that she's connected to trafficking or anybody else who's a mob boss. He's the same one who has Sergei and another guy come in and take the two young girls. And regardless, what he has put his hands to in holding a gun and enforcing the dictates of his boss, he's looking at the results of that. He's holding the results of that. He's feeling the scars. He's looking at the scars. And on some level, he thinks about it. He sort of turns his head about it. It is something that he considers. We don't know if he's completely moved by it, but we do know that this particular scene here is something that kind of bothers him. So we are back to when he is now surveilling the brother's, apartment with a hoodie. And of course, he's still blended into the environment. And here is the actual brother here. And we don't know what the brother does. We just know on some level he must have some influence. If there's a need to take him out, he must have some influence. because we don't see Victor taking out everyone who has hurt Bethesda. It seems like is the interviewer that we see at the beginning of the film, and this guy, his brother, who they look alike in a sense. It's something about these two that Victor must take out, in a sense, must assassinate. And we know now that it was really Bethesda who's pointing out these two men. So Victor continues his sort of acting role. He's at a courier place, a delivery place, and he's getting a package. And the package is going to be clothes and other items. Well, not clothes, but other items that basically suggest that he's a pizza man. And here's the pizza box. And I don't know who puts all of this together to mail him a fake pizza box with other types of items so he can look apart. But it's interesting how the system is very organized in this way, that he could request a delivery of a pizza box, a fake pizza box with other items, so he could look the part in order to be a pizza man to shoot somebody who is a target. So this lets you know how organized the system is, how thoughtful they are in terms of their strategies, right? Because the goal is to take the assignment, complete the assignment, and you have to do all that you can to do that. And you don't want a record of calling for a pizza, right? To me, it would have been simple enough just to call for a pizza and then deliver it to that person, right? The pizza that you bought, but then that leaves a record as well. So he's laying out the particular tools that he's going to use, a gun. He's taking this all apart from a particular laptop that he used. But again, this is this laying out that you see when he's laying out his clothes, the jogging clothes. Most people don't really lay out their jogging clothes. They may lay out a suit pants and suit jacket and shirt or something like that, socks, underwear, anything that they're going to put together and put on and wear, but you don't really lay out your jogging pants, right? So in the same way that he lays out the jogging gear, he's laying out the elements of the gun. Okay, remember that he does have some practice with a gun, and so he knows all of the components of a gun. So he's wearing the uniform and with matching hat, matching jacket, and then a pizza container, and then of course the pizza is on the inside of that container. And so it's interesting how focused he is on selling this idea. This is a way also of blending into the environment, because you surveil the area to know who delivers pizza in this area, right? And so this sort of takes some time to determine what type of pizza place. And when the guy opens the door, that means he was expecting a pizza. So if he was expecting a pizza, then this also further means that Victor had studied the area and studied him long enough to know what his pattern was. Because why open the door, right? Especially when it's night like this. I don't open my door, but he thought enough to open the door. And so Victor knocks on the door, and then when the brother opens the door, Victor has his silencer. He comes in, and we're going to see an image, the guy asking why, and Victor saying, "You know why." And this is that image here. And I like the fact that the writer-director only focuses on the actor's face and then just half of his face, which kind of signifies to me, the part of the decisions that are in the dark that we sort of make, and then the ones that are actually in the light. And so by the time he gets to this point in his life, this brother here, how many bad decisions has he made? to the point that now he's having to be assassinated. And maybe it was his other brother, who is the interviewer, who got him into a lot of the stuff that he got into. But it's interesting, though, that he's now reaching a part of his life, his mortality, where he's being assassinated. Not sort of walking along somewhere and someone attacks him, and or maybe he having a heart attack or just dying of natural causes. He's dying here a tragedy. Being assassinated is a tragedy. And also the fact that he has to be assassinated tells you about the level this man is on. That he has to, most people are not assassinated, they are killed or murdered. For him to be assassinated, he must have been a very important figure who was doing things sort of like not on the down low, but in you know, in those dark areas, you know, that you connect with people who are part of the criminal element, and they give you this little passcode or key code or something like that, and you meet women and you have sex with women, and we have to assume that they were having sex, because when Bethesda gives the parable at the end about the farmer who had had a farm, and because this very important man decided that he wanted to take the farm, and the farmer refused, and then he took the daughters, or he took his precious commodities. And she talks about the how her sister could not withstand the heavy sexual appetites of men, but that she could. She says it from a standpoint of being 10 years old. So whatever they did to her and her sister, they did it to them while they were 10 years old. And so how does a person get to that point in life where they are raping a 10-year-old, right? So we see him assassinated. There's no recovery. There's no way out of it. He's just going to be shot. And then Victor takes the ring. He knows that this ring is an identifier. So when he's interviewed by the interviewer, the brother, and when Victor is about to reveal Bethesda, he gives the interviewer this ring. And so the interviewer know to whom the ring belongs. And that's what sort of shakes him and unsettles him. And that really sets the scene for him to hear out Bethesda, and then for Victor to finally shoot him. But this ring is an identifier. It has an identity. It has a history. We don't know what the history is. I don't remember seeing the ring taken off Bethesda's parents. I remember Bethesda holding a necklace, or maybe taking the necklace off her mother. And so it's the necklace that she leaves behind for Victor to then contact her. And that sort of sets the scene for them to get together, fall in love, get pregnant, and then for her to betray him as well. But this ring here has an identification. It is an identifier. It belongs to a specific person. So then when it's used at the end of the movie, we understand why the interviewer is shaken up, and why he realizes that Victor has killed him. After all, he's a hitman. Again, the interviewer is not working with logic on his side. What would you think if a person who is interviewing, what do you expect them to do if the person is a hitman? And so again, this ring is an identification. You don't even need his actual identification. The brother knows to whom this ring belongs. So Victor has met his particular task. So he has assassinated the brother, and now he's on his way to going back to where he came from. And so this time he's taking a bus. So remember, he comes in the movie on an airplane, then he transitions into a train, coming off a train, and now he's returning on a bus. How significant it is, I don't know. It could be economic, from one thing to the next, from one level, higher level, to a lower level. Usually people who take the bus really cannot always afford the plane. But it also says a lot about not being easily identified, because someone could have seen him shoot the guy or pretended to be a pizza man and then saw him shoot the guy, right? And so returning on a bus versus returning on an airplane sort of keeps him under the radar, right? It keeps him, it sort of lengthens the time. So by the time you figure out what he's done, it's too late. But I thought it was interesting that he's returning on the bus, and it looks like is he returning in his jogging gear? It's hard to tell, but he's in that same hat that he was jogging with. He's also in, he also has headphones. So I don't remember. That looks like the leather jacket that he's been wearing. Regardless, he's blending into his environment. So he was a airplane rider, he was a train rider, and now he is a bus rider. The only thing I think we don't see him in is in a car. So he's now surveilling the area, the actual townhouse where the interviewer is. And again, it's interesting. Again, the interviewer doesn't think to look to see if there are any cameras. He doesn't even really search out the place. He just goes for the camera equipment, sets it all up. But there's nothing in him that suggests, let me look around this place. I mean, after all, I'm in this place by myself. Let me look around it. Versus when you see Viktor having to be on the run and trying to meet up with another boss, a mob boss, he sort of goes into another person's, I think it's his room, and immediately he searches out if there are any bugs in the room. And so he finds a bug behind the bed. He finds other types of surveillance equipment. And then he's able to take out that person and then become, or listen to how he can get into the new system that he wants to get into. But this is him surveilling this particular interview, the person who's going to interview him. And the interviewer is just sitting down, waiting, not even plotting how he's going to do the interview. There isn't a pen or pad in his hand or anything like that. He's just waiting. And so we see Viktor again, contemplating maybe how he's going to approach. This room that you see here is, I think, the very same loft that he and Bethesda are living in, because the same color scheme is in a subsequent frame. So maybe Bethesda is asleep somewhere. But again, by the time we see Viktor meet with the interviewer, he's already in relationship with Bethesda, and she's already pregnant, and there's already an indication or a suggestion that they're going to stay together. So Viktor comes to the place. That means that he had a key to the place in order to be there. And then this interviewer comes down. He is shocked to see Viktor, of course. And of course, he's going to be a little reluctant. We don't know. He doesn't know if Viktor is going to pull out a gun or something like that. After all, he is a hitman. Viktor shows proof that he is the right person who he's supposed to be interviewing as with a Polaroid photograph of this interviewer, basically asleep. So then we still don't know if it is Victor who took the picture. I do remember the guy holding the Polaroid camera, and he might have taken his own picture. Oh, actually, he does. He does take his own picture, because from a distance we see a flash that looks like he was shot. That's why I thought at the beginning that it was a trap for him and he was shot. No, he was the one who took a picture of himself. And so we have to assume then that Victor was the one who transported him to this apartment and locked him in, because here is proof of that picture. And so Victor is ready to sit for the interview. So the guy he's already set everything up, as we understand, as we know. And it's interesting that I like this this picture that is a reflection of this mirror image that is a reflection of the window, that it looks like that window is at the back of the interviewer, which is really just a reflection. But it's interesting again that he never opens any windows, he never gets any air, he never thinks about moving about the apartment or anything like that. He just sits and waits for Victor to come along. In the same way that you might see Bethesda just timing when she would meet with Victor. So that means if she's coming into the restaurant and sort of eyeballing Victor, then she must have been surveilling Victor in the same way that he has surveilled his targets, assassination targets. She must have surveilled him to know when he would come to that restaurant. I'm not sure if that's the only restaurant in the area, but it is a specific restaurant. And I remember one of the guys who takes her in the back and abuses her when they finally meet, saying, "Why don't you stay?" or something like, "Why don't you stay this time?" And I didn't catch that the first 2 times I watched the movie, but I thought to myself, she's been there before. And that got me to thinking about her role. And it still wasn't until the end of the movie that I saw that she set the whole thing up. And every time I get to the end of the movie, I'm still shocked when she's holding a gun and she shoots Victor. But she must have been surveilling him the whole time, keeping tabs on him. So while he's running around and surveilling other people to assassinate, she was running around and surveilling him to assassinate him. Isn't that interesting to think about? That that parallel, that she becomes what he is. And she didn't expect, or he didn't expect her to become what he is when he was first holding that gun to her head when he was a child. But as they grew up and he went his way and she went her way, involuntarily, of course, their worlds collide and they both become what the other person is, or she becomes what he is. So she essentially becomes the mob enforcer. But what we see here is just the interviewer getting ready to ask him, how did it start? How did you get into the business? Things like that. And Victor says, let's start from the beginning. And that's essentially from when he was a child. So the child that we see at the beginning is the child now that Victor is going to talk about. And so this is him saying, let's start from the beginning. You know, again, we don't know, when we look at Victor here at this part of the film, we don't know that he is setting up this interviewer. So this face that he puts on is also acting. This garb that he's wearing the suit without a tie is also acting. And this could be the same garb that he wore when he was first coming off the plane, and that he handled as much as he could before he then returned to the hotel to become the pizza man and then kill his brother. So he had to get the ring somehow. But this is him acting. And it's interesting that as a hitman, I would think you would want to go ahead and solve that problem immediately, not wait it out, not plot it out, not think about it. But I think that the writer director Perry Vandal really does a great job of sort of pacing out the plot setbacks, because in some ways he's not plotting a setback in the sense that he has that in mind. We are looking at this as a plotted setback. And so this the desire to now want to kill him at Bethesda's bequest, or I say behest rather, and not being able to do it in this moment is sort of like a setback, having to set back that assignment. See, remember, Bethesda really has assigned this task of assassination because this is her show. He's not really on assignment in the same way that he was on assignment when Sergey sent him on an assignment, or when any of the other mob boss sent him on an assignment. This is really Bethesda's assignment. So he's taking really a lot of direction from her, which is strange because none of the men take any direction from women. If anything, the women are expected to take direction from men, and the women are abused in the film. They are expected to be put to service in the film. They are expected to not have a voice in the film. When Sergey kills Viktor's father and he sends the mother some money and the father's lighter in the envelope, she doesn't get a say in her husband being killed. And also when Viktor goes and kills the father and the wife doesn't get a say in the father being killed. Viktor pulls out a gun before she can even realize what he's doing, and he kills the father, then kills the wife, and then almost kills the two girls. So the women in the film do not have a say, but Bethesda behind the scenes is the female puppet master, the voice that all of the women in the film don't have a voice to speak. She gets to speak. She gets to have the last word on men dominating the women in the film, abusing the women in the film, raping the women in the film as young girls, and expecting, and the men expecting that they can make decisions on behalf of women and still keep their life. Sure, Viktor impregnated her, or she allowed herself to be impregnated, but she's not going to give him a voice in their son's life. And she does say it's a boy, but this face here is a face of real tolerance, and it's really an attitude towards the interviewer. And it's, strangely enough, it's an ironic attitude because Viktor is looking at the clientele of the system who paid for the girls and paid for the women, and now he's a man working against another man in the very same system that they support and enforce, and it is a woman who comes in between them. So there's a lot I can do with this, but I just want you to think about that face that you see here, that is much more that is going on, and that is not really at Viktor's. He may think he's in control, but he's been out of control for the longest when they met each other in the restaurant, and probably way before that as well, when she put all of this into motion when she gave herself an assignment to set up all the people around her who hurt her and her family, as well as Victor. All right, like, subscribe, and visit. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for more discussions. You can visit my YouTube channel for further film analysis. It's Favorites Film Analysis as the title of the channel. You can always send me an email and ask me a question, reginayfavorites@yahoo.com. My Overcoming Setback, 5 Keys for Entering and Exiting Correction book will become available around October 2021. I'm still doing some editing. The book does not focus on film analyses, but I use the content that I created for the book to support my my perceptions of setback used as a theme in select films. So when the book becomes available, I will send out a notification video, audio. Thank you very much for visiting the channel.